A very good evening, everyone. Today, I have here with me Rajesh Srinivasan on Thinkly Ama. Before I introduce Rajesh, let me quickly take 5 seconds and introduce myself. I'm Sonal Saxena. I've been in the marketing and advertising profession for nearly 2 decades now. I'm an entrepreneur and also an academician. I work with agencies like Wonderman Thompson, Grey Worldwide, and currently I'm engaged with VMLY&R India. And I'm extremely excited and thankful for Thinkly letting me take this AMA session with Rajesh today. Now, delighted to introduce Rajesh. It's a very long resume, but I'll make it tight and short so that we can jump into the AMA session because the questions are already ringing in. So Rajesh is a modern marketing strategist and a very renowned author. He's the brain behind brand strategy, innovation, and go-to-market success for CEOs and business leaders. Further on, he works extensively with B2C and B2B companies, helps them developing marketing strategies and brand playbooks. He has authored 2 books, Marketing Success Formula, and the second one is Growth Nuggets. He's a TEDx speaker and he frequently delivers keynote sessions at various industrial conferences. And he gives guest lectures at top B schools in India. Now, Rajesh, that's a very handsome resume. Now let's get into the AMA session. So your journey has been quite exciting, from real estate consulting all the way to transformation of consultant and coach. And you talk about brand journeys. It's quite a journey you have traveled yourself professionally. Yeah, so I'll jump into the first question. Now, you speak a lot about human-centric approach, yeah? And that's really the way the industry is heading and brands are moving. Now, what I've read in your pieces is you talk about human-centric approach rather than technology or data-centric. Now talk about this.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. And I'm so excited to talk about modern marketing and share my insights with you, Sonal, with an experienced person like you. I think I'm going to enjoy this whole conversation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, as you pointed out, even when I started my career, I was so focused on all those visible, fancy metrics like media, technology, tools, and all those things. Later on, I realized it's more of a commodity. It's more of a commodity which all the brands can use. When I read more about marketing, then I realized it's not just about concepts, it's about real humans. Even people like you, experienced people like you from the industry made me to realize, get into the truth of marketing. So when I say human-centric, what do I really mean is, I mean most of the purchases or most of the things which I do as a human, brands are connected, right? So rather than seeing everything from a behavioral standpoint, I started seeing things, or I usually urge people to see things from what drives those behavior. For example, data, I'm not against data analytics, but what data throws is something which is very, at a very surface level. It shows the behavior of a human. When did you purchase things? What is the ticket size? What is your frequency of purchase? How many clicks, likes, shares? All those things data analytics can show. But what drives? I usually say something like this: beliefs behind the behavior. What is the belief system of a human? Why he is buying what he is buying? So even currently I'm doing a research for one of my clients. I'm just focusing on 3 things: stress, worry, and anxiety. So how these 3 things drive purchases in a lot of categories.
Right.
So that's what I mean when I say human-centric. Inside marketing, most of the conversation happens um, at a more surface level. We discuss about products, we discuss about competition, pricing, communications, media, what technology we need to use, all those stuff we discuss. But at some point of time, I believe that everything has to connect with the customer, even one step ahead, not just a customer. We are dealing with humans, right? So to adopt this mindset, what I have started doing is, earlier I used to read a lot of marketing books, go to a lot of conferences, interact with marketing professionals, watch a lot of ads. Later on, I've started going to shopping along with my wife.
Right.
Started watching Netflix along with my son.
Yeah.
Started interacting with people. I mean, I've learned this concept of get out of the building from Steve Blank, consultant. So it means getting out of the building to me means getting out of the mindset of a marketer and mingling with a human. If I bring out the human inside me, so I'm able to connect with a lot of things. And when I observe people around me, like an anthropologist,
Right.
how they behave, what are their fears, why they are anxious, why we are happy. So I think I'm able to emulate that mindset of human centricity.
So basically, unlike the traditional way, in fact, Vinesh has asked a question which says, how has marketing techniques changed over the past era? So if I'm to summarize what you're saying, earlier, all the decisions, whether it was product design or communication, was more data and number driven. It was more scientific in nature. What you're saying now is we have to apply the softer side to it also. Also go through how brands are processing themselves and how they don't look at you in isolation. In fact, I read a little piece that you had written about, the car purchase. It's not about features, it's also about how much parking space I have, etc., right? So you're basically saying you have to go beyond the numbers and into the skin of the consumer, to take those decisions and make it more hard-coded that way. Yeah?
Exactly. The companies, in fact, the paradox is the companies which focus more on human side are good at numbers.
Right.
And the companies which are too focused on numbers, we tend to run behind numbers and forget about what really drives those numbers. If you take even example of top brands like Apple, Nike, they are good. They are extremely good at numbers. They are leaders in their category, but they don't focus really on numbers. They focus on anthropological side. Nike focus on culture. So they, as a byproduct, they make a lot of money. So most of the good brands make money as a byproduct and keep human centricity as a core focus area.
Right. So from here, I'll jump on to the next question that's already in by Raila, who writes, content marketing has gained a lot of traction recently. What are your thoughts on the role of content in modern marketing? And what strategies do you recommend for creating compelling content?
Can you repeat that question?
Of course. Content marketing has gained a lot of traction recently. Yeah. What are your thoughts on the role of content in modern marketing? And what strategies do you recommend for creating compelling content?
Yeah, that's a good question. Now, I think at this point of time, we have reached a stage. I mean, this is from marketing standpoint.
Yeah.
We have reached a stage where content has become a commoditized. Earlier, 3-4 years back, 5 years back, again, content marketing was at a early stage, right? So now today, if I see internet, I mean we have reached a stage. When I say content commoditization, the same type of content everywhere. I mean, it could be a brand, the communication, the content might be from a brand, might be from an influencer or an agency, whatever it is. So today, what really matters, I think, according to me, is the content. I mean, the content which the marketer creates, I mean, the company creates. There are two types of content I see: the business side of content and the consumer side of content. Today, the beauty is even consumers have started creating content. See, so to zoom out and see this, prior to internet, marketers bombarded customers with content, advertisement. Even after the internet or social media, we created a lot of content for consumers. Today, what happens is, because of social media, because of evolution of media, where the baton has been passed to the consumers, they create content day in and day out. So as a marketer, what I would ideally need to think is, rather than thinking of marketing communications, I would change my hat to marketing conversations. So how can I be part of those conversations taking place already in the realm of customers? If I'm there, I mean, the difference is the content that is created by consumer. We technically call this as user-generated content, right? So this has more power than the content developed by the marketer. That has more trust among the customers' peers than the content created by the marketers. To answer your question directly, I think content marketing or content from a marketing standpoint has come to a stage where it has become a commodity. People tend to ignore most of the content. And the content created by you and me as consumers, I mean, my peers listen to it. People who follow, because humans, we give more weightage to humans than companies in this social media world. So that's my view about this. And I wanted to hear from you also. What do you think about that?
No, I quite agree with you. And that's why this whole space of influencer marketing is booming today, right? Because it is relevant content, it is believable content. And reviews are playing a big role. I mean, today, even in influencer marketing, it's not, I mean, there is a whole world of rural influencer marketing also in India, because that's the meatier segment. And they are ending up being the more powerful influencers or content creators when it comes to brand now. That speak is what holds a lot of weightage. So absolutely, I mean, content created by consumers, content created beyond brands is the space to go, and the direction, brands are highly moving into. So yeah. So we'll move on to the next question, which is again very close to you, on storytelling. Yeah. So storytelling is a new buzzword in content marketing, as is employer branding. How does it help marketers build a compelling narrative? I'll read that question again for you. Storytelling is the new buzzword in content marketing, as is employer branding. How does it help marketers build a compelling narrative?
Yeah. Storytelling is there. I mean, when we study human evolution, it's part of how the entire humans have evolved, right from hunter-gatherers, and next to the stage where we gave meaning to a lot of things. When we created money, when we created religion, when we created language, when we created countries. So everything is born out of the human need to see meaning in each and everything. See, our mind works in that way. Human mind works in that way, right? So we try to make sense of everything through meaning. So what I buy, where I work, what is my profession, how do I take care of my family? So I mean, this makes us a bit irrational. This makes us, and that's a beautiful nature of humans. We are irrational, and and when we think about storytelling, it caters to the irrational component of humans. So I used to think, for example, if I want to move from point A to point B, I just need a vehicle for that, right? So am I buying a car just to move from point A to point B? No, in most cases, I buy a car for certain other reasons. So for my social status. So if I buy a BMW, for example, I'm literally not buying a car. I'm buying a logo of BMW. So it adds a meaning to my life. It gives me a social status. So most of the products, I mean, after a certain level, if not for functional benefits, I buy a lot of things purely for its functionality, not for meaning or storytelling.
Right.
But beyond a point, I buy most of the things for, I mean, if you take Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it clearly states after all your basic needs are satisfied, you do things for your psychological and esteem and social needs, right? So it clearly fits with your brand strategy, the way we design our product, not just communication, everything, the way we design the entire organization, the entire culture, brand, product, communication, media can be leveraged around this idea of this meaning-seeking nature of humans.
Yeah.
So I usually observe a lot of things, even our inherent need to follow hierarchy inside an org. Hierarchy is a wonderful way of looking at how we give meaning to certain things, right? So I think it's much deeper than our storytelling nature is much deeper than seeing it only from a content perspective. It has a wider application. I mean, one way of looking at it is seeing things from a religious standpoint also. How many things we buy based on our religion, based on our culture. Most of the things which we hesitate to speak, if we get into those truths, I think, I mean, at the end of the day, what we need is human insights, right? Insights that we can use in our product communication to break through. So I think storytelling has more applications.
Absolutely. In fact, when you spoke about Maslow's, that was exactly what I was also going through in my mind, and that's the whole hierarchy of buying brands to fulfill a need versus making a statement. There is another interesting little question in this question itself, which I don't know if you would like to address. So he's also talking about the fact that, is employer branding, and the entire employer engagement playing a role in this process. So, I mean, do you think you want to just add on that?
Yeah, sure. Even storytelling makes sense there. See, one way of looking at all these things is moving away from jargons and seeing things from a real world perspective. Employer branding and employer value proposition is what we use inside company. Yeah. For example, I used to imagine when I visited one of my friends' home, he was about to get married. Okay, so he said, I was interacting with him and asking him, what are some of the questions your in-laws asked you? Just, we have some selection process, right? They ask certain questions. He said one of the top questions was, where am I working? So the company name, he was working for a one of the software major in the country. Right. So he said, once after I've communicated that company name to my father-in-law, he said he was convinced. Almost is okay. So my daughter is safe.
But the checklist is done.
Yeah. The employer branding, I mean, it has very high relevance, not just as to how I come and work inside an office. Even when it comes to, from a storytelling standpoint, even when I meet my friend, if I tell my company name, what he would think about me. Right. We all speak about where we work, even with the casual, when we meet our friends, family, it has much wider relevance than in the area of work. So what we do inside a company, if we ask this question, employer branding works like a charm. That's what I think. This person, this employee, he goes out. If he had to talk to a friend, what he had to speak about our company when he spends time with his friend in a restaurant. So if we reverse engineer those conversations, I think we'll be able to build proper employee value proposition, proper culture. I think so, right? Okay, hope it makes sense. Or
no, I agree, and I'll just build on that. See, today, the employers are your spokesmen, yeah, in more ways than one. The culture, whether it's inclusiveness, I mean, when you have conversations about companies and brands, quite often, even in interviews, when you are interviewing someone for a job, one question that definitely comes up is the culture of the organization. How inclusive is the organization? So I think more and more, and especially in this entire digital era, the employer branding is going to play a very big role on how people perceive your company and people even perceive your brand. A bad employer review can actually impact a brand in a very big way. So I mean, I absolutely echo what you're saying. It plays an extremely big role. Sorry.
Yeah, and one more point which I would like to add to what you said is, even like we have a customer funnel, right? We do customer awareness, create awareness, interest, desire, and action. We call it as AIDA. Customer acquisition, customer retention. The same applies to employee acquisition, employee retention also. In that, if you notice, interview is one of the major brand touch point. We see customer touch points. If you see employees, if a company starts seeing employees as their customer in that mindset, we can even create touch points very similar to how we would approach brand from the standpoint of customers. Similar way we acquire, retain employees, engagement strategies, all those things conceptually are more or less relevant. And one more idea which I've learned from researching some of the major brands is employee experience precedes customer experience. And I mean, employee engagement precedes customer engagement. Employee delight precedes customer delight. This is particularly true and very relevant if we are running a service brand.
True. Yeah, because they are the ones who are going to really reflect that to the outside. Well, it's quite D2C in nature. Yeah, so it's a direct impact, absolutely. So I'll move on to the next question because we have loads of them to cover and limited time. So the next question reads, sir, any advice for small businesses or startups with limited marketing budgets? How can they make the most impact with these resources?
One way of looking at this is, I mean, getting into the strategy focus. If I'm very, very clear on my target market segment, this is my customer. If I'm very, very clear on them, I can start recruiting them, handpick them without putting up huge money on media. I mean, it's very easy to say, but I mean, rather than focusing on media advertising, for example, if I am a startup founder, so it's a challenge for me, right? So I need to hire those initial 25 or 50 odd customers without huge marketing budget. So how I can do it by narrowing down the market. When we study startups, I mean, most successful startups during the early stage, even though the market, their TAM is big, their market size is big, they focus on a very specific target market segment or even more specific city or even pin code. If we have that level of clarity in our market, I think you can easily hire those initial 25 to 50 customers rather than spending more money, and even making your value proposition and product very, very specific, super specific to that audience.
Yeah.
So then as you build your 50, 100, then you widen your proposition and market. So that I think that approach I could see in a lot of companies, the way Facebook has grown, Uber has grown, and during the initial stage, even founders went and recruited. Airbnb founders went onto the ground to recruit customers because they were very clear. They went to some specific city in US, took photographs of houses, put up. They did their own job to get that initial traction. I think that could be useful. That approach could be useful.
Yeah, so the key is to be pointed and extremely targeted. Yeah, don't try to be too many things for too many people.
Exactly. And one more way is to look into the early adopters and innovators, because they naturally spread your word. They naturally evangelize what they buy.
Yeah, they become your ambassadors.
Yeah. So seeing your customer as a media.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Moving on to the next question. It says, "Hey Rajesh, the marketing landscape has been evolving rapidly. What cool changes have you seen recently, and how do you think they'll shape up things in the future?" Want me to read that again?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
The marketing landscape has been evolving rapidly. What cool changes have you seen recently, and how do you think they'll shape up things in the future?
When I see marketing, I see it in two lenses. One is some underlying principles which will be evergreen, and on the other side, things that change frequently. I mean, as marketers or as business owners or as entrepreneurs, it's better to dance between these two. What's changing and what's not changing. And we see what's changing clearly is the technology landscape is changing. It's simple. We even Facebook was very familiar 10 years back. Now we are moving, the generation is moving to another new platform, Instagram. So now AI, we used to search for information in Google. Yes, we are still searching for information. Now we have another advanced layer of artificial intelligence, chat GPT, where we don't just search for information, it gives a packaged information. Search in a very packaged way, right? So the media landscape is evolving. And the second is the consumer adoption towards this media is also way, way higher. We as consumers adopt to media very quickly. So I'm not offering any specific framework to approach this. I mean, I see this as a dance between what's changing and what's not changing, because this technology landscape, how I see is the life cycle of any technology is very, very, I mean, limited.
Yeah.
Very, very limited. So I wouldn't even, I don't know what would happen to chat GPT in next 1 year or 2 years. I mean, the platform could mature because already we have millions and millions of people using chat GPT. So the framework or the mindset which I would offer is see technology in the life cycle, a quick life cycle. We may use a technology today, but we are using the technology as an enabler in marketing, right? So I'm driving on top of a technology. So I mean, we can even be slightly paranoid. Will this technology be relevant for my brand in the next six months, 1 year? So what would happen? So these are the questions which we need to ask from a risk standpoint. And from a cultural standpoint, there are a lot of things which are evolving from a consumer behavioral standpoint. So how we consume information, what are the things that affects my overall life? So these are some of the things which we need to ask frequently, and it's better to take a step back from what we do. And at least if you're a marketer, if you're a CMO or a head marketing or driving marketing, at least at least once in a month, it's better to step back, like we do in IPL, strategic timeout. So even do a strategic timeout and see the broader landscape of product. How will my product be relevant given the culture which I'm driving, behavioral aspects. Most of the products, for example, I would say, if your product is a commodity, if I'm selling something like a soap, pure commodity, product as such is not going to change. The way people buy that product will change. People may not go to a store and buy. People may buy it in Amazon. But if your product is a technology product, the core product itself is a technology product, I think you have to be even more extra cautious because technology life cycle is very, very small.
Yes.
These are some of the things which I would, throw to you to ponder upon.
Yeah, I'll just build on this point, Rajesh, onto experience. So today, it's beyond product and what the product does for you. People are, just answering the question on the changing landscape, experience is playing an extremely big role now. Everything is about experience. Even buying that soap is going to become an experience, and it's already an experience. Yeah. So I'll move on to the next question that is around data. It says data-driven marketing seems like a game changer. Could you spill the beans on why it's important and maybe toss in some tips for businesses looking to harness data for their marketing mojo?
See, that's a good question. I always have this question inside me.
Yeah.
See, I've seen a small phrase somewhere: data rich, insights poor. Data is not a problem today, and data information, we have abundant of data today. So how we are going to draw meaningful insights from data is very, very critical. And I would even go one step ahead and ask myself, there are two, when we say analytics, there are two analytics, and we most often talk about data analytics. I would even say psychoanalytics or human analytics. Why I say this is because our data analytics will always show whatever statistical tools that we use. It will always show us the visible aspect of things. For example, if you're analyzing me, if I am a customer and you're a data analyst, you will be able to identify how many times I've bought your product, what are the channels I used, what are the price points at which I bought your product, frequency of purchase, share of wallet, and all those things. One thing which data analytics, one critical thing which data analytics cannot tell you is the belief behind my purchase, why I bought this in the first place. What are my emotions? That's why I say your data quotient and emotional quotient has to travel equally for a marketer. Otherwise, one thing which we need to be very, very careful is when we get into all this news, social media, and business conferences, certain things come on top of our mind. Data analytics is one such thing, and we need to constantly question these things that are mainstream. So what is the practical applicability of me? How I need to move forward to certain things, right? So my answer to this is very straightforward. Data analytics, again, it is a commodity today. You can learn data analytics. There are enough number of tools available to study data analytics. It has become a hygiene. It is, we must do it. There's no doubt in that. But what am I doing with data analytics? What are the meaningful insights that I create with the data that I have, and how it drives my product, my communication, my engagement, overall business growth is very, very critical, for which marketer needs to again balance between data analysis and human analysis, human insights. The second one is much sounds easier and it's difficult. So that's why I always harp on human centricity, human analysis, getting into the core of what we do as humans, right? So, yeah.
Perfect. So Mehak has a question, it's a sweet little question. She says, what do you guys think? Can an introvert break into the world of marketing, thrive in this bustling industry? So any tips for Mehak?
I think you should answer this question. I want to hear your inputs on this.
So there is everyone need not be an extrovert. In fact, I think most of us are introverts. Yeah, so Mehak, that's a little secret out for you. So we are all introverts here, but I think we've mastered the skill of communication because that's the business we are in. So it is a play that comes with a lot of practice and definitely a lot of knowledge. Yeah, so I think the key over here is to upskill yourself and really read up a lot, know about the space. And that is where the extrovert bit comes in all of us, right? Because we all are speaking here with rich experience. Both Rajesh and me have nearly 2 decades of experience in this space. So it's not about either of us being an extrovert. It's about we having a bank of knowledge and the authority on the subject that we speak upon. So I think for you, the tip from me would be really upskill, read up. And, I'll talk about upskill a bit. Upskill is a continuous cycle. So I'm an advertising professional. I need to upskill because the last decade, maybe at least the last 6 years, has seen a complete reset in the advertising, media, and communication industry. And if we don't reset ourselves, read up on things like UI, UX, AI, ChatGPT, I mean, these are not words. These are things we know, and these are things we need to know on how to integrate. Integrating brand experience to user interface. These are things we need to upskill ourselves on. So I think the trick or the tip over here is read up, know your space really, really well, and you'll really succeed in this space. Rajesh?
Great. Yeah, truly resonates with me.
Yeah. Perfect. So we'll move on to the next question, which says, hello, sir and ma'am, you both have vast experience in branding and marketing. Could you share some lessons that you have learned over your career and fun assignments that you have worked on?
Yeah, you have, okay, I'll answer next to you. You have vast experience in dealing with brands, right?
Yeah. So for me, I think one brand that I really enjoyed working on is not the usual brands that you would expect from me to talk about. I'm not going to talk about Sunsilk, Lux, Goodnight, and the other brands. I'll talk about PCRA, which is Petroleum Ministry. Yeah, for me, I think that was it sounds extremely boring. Petroleum Ministry, save fuel. So yeah, it was a pitch that I worked on when I was working with JWT, which is now Wonderman Thompson. And this was a great assignment for me because we worked alongside Alak Padamsi, who is the god of advertising. Of course, the world has changed drastically since his time. But of course, he's always a godfather and someone we resonate and look up to. So this was a very exciting campaign. In fact, it was a pitch we worked on. We won the pitch as JWT. The whole brief over here was, how do you get people to save fuel? Right? Because these NGO campaigns of save electricity, save water, save everything, they just go by. Nobody really works towards it because there are a lot of things to worry about in the world. There's tuition fee and EMIs to pay for. So in this cluttered category, how do I talk to a housewife to, save the LGP and a car owner to save petrol and a tractor owner to take care of his vehicle? And that's when we cracked upon this entire insight of what's in it for me. Yeah. Till you don't give a consumer something that gets him something or saves him something, he's not going to listen to you. And that's when we stumbled upon our insight or our proposition for this campaign, where we came up with save fuel, yani save money. And for me, I think, like I said, I've worked with all possible brands, verticals, and MNCs. This one is so close to me because this was deep rooted in consumer. And like you said, going under her skin and understanding what will make them actually listen to your campaign. And the campaign was all about, how when you stop your car at the signal, you turn off that engine, you clean your, the vehicle, get the cleaning of the tubes and the filters done, or cover the pani, jab pani ubal raha hai, tab dhak do usko. Ya, chawal bhigo kar phir banao. And when you do all of this, you'll buy your husband a watch at the end of the year. That's how much you will save. Or when you carpool, you save enough to buy your wife a diamond ring, or your child that that cycle. And trust me, this campaign worked beautifully for PCRA, but Petroleum Ministry, and they really saved up a lot of fuel, because there was a consumer insight, and there was a what's in it for them over there. So this is a campaign that's extremely close to me.
Interesting. Yeah, again, it boils down to getting into the core human motivators, right? If you crack that, everything falls into place.
Absolutely. So I'll move on to the next question. Very interesting question. I have point of views on that, but let me read this first. Interesting how you both talk about culture. As I've observed lately, brands are looking at culture only from their point of view. Languages are dubbed, but ads are not recreated for a particular geography in India. Doesn't that disconnect consumers and customers and create added strain on marketing and sales for any brand?
Yeah, that's a good question. So that's the challenge for brands, right? So if you're a brand, if you're a global brand, so how do you stay relevant? First, you have to be globally relevant. Second, relevant for a particular country. For example, if you're a global brand entering into a country like us, India, you have to be even more relevant locally, right? So state-wise, city-wise, even our language or culture changes region-wise. So it's not that easy. But I think to some extent it's doable, and brands have done it. Even in some cases, I saw McDonald's reorienting their product to our country, to even Starbucks reorienting coffee to certain regions. And I recently read Starbucks, I think is not successful in Australia, because even though that is a high consume coffee region, because they are not able to stay relevant for those baristas conceptually. So it's not that easy staying, particularly if you're a global brand.
Yeah.
For a brand, if you're a national brand, Indian brand, I believe it slightly makes your job a bit easier, because you can understand the nuances of the market. You can at least, even if you're not changing a product, the best case scenario is even reorienting your product for certain regions. I mean, if you're serving serving something related to food, your brand can add flavor to each and every region, because our food tastes are different across the country, right? That's one. At the next level, at the communication level, even if you cannot do much on the product, the communication level, you can communicate the product in a regional language, getting into the regional consumer insights and sharing something. It again boils down to the basic anthropological need of humans. We feel connected when the language or the medium presented is very close to us, and which we use day in and day out. Yeah. So yeah, it makes sense to be relevant to cultures, but that's not easy for a global brand, but it makes life simple for a national brand. So
yeah, but closer home, what I'd like to add, rather, it's a pride of being Indian. Most MNCs create pieces for India. I think that's something we need to be proud of, because we are a huge middle class market. We're a huge consumption house for them. So while you're rightly saying a lot of ads are dubbed, they might not be relevant. But as far as larger companies are concerned, especially MNCs, closer homes will obviously make ads which are resonating with us. But more and more global companies, especially brands which are culture soaked, are actually creating pieces which are made in India and made for India. So I think that's something as a marketeer I'm very proud of, and we should really celebrate that. Yeah. So I'll move. No, sorry.
I have a thought to add in this.
Yeah.
Even sometimes the mistake which national brands make is, we could see, particularly if you're from South. I mean, they speak in the language to the rest of the India. Sometimes brands dub their general communication, which they roll out for rest of the India to South. But in South, if you notice, there are a lot of other regional languages. Sometimes national brands miss out on this component. When you're approaching South, it's better to reorient the communication. I mean, even the phonetics, even the brand celebrities you use based on that particular region. That's one of the easiest way to adapt to regions, right? So I think sometimes even national brands, I see a lot of memes or even funny stories on social media, particularly on LinkedIn also, where brands use the same communication which they did for rest of India, even to South, and people in South get frustrated.
Yeah. But that is also a marketing budgetary challenge.
Yeah.
While I hear what you're saying, but that is definitely a challenge. I think in that case, what brands end up doing is they focus on the larger markets for them.
Yeah.
I hear you. It is a very important point. It's a very, very important point. Yeah. So I'll move on, and this one can go on forever, but I'll move on to the next question, right? Hi, Rajesh. Thanks for sharing your valuable insights. Wanted to know your view on how to build virality for a product in today's high noise digital age. How to bring virality for a product in today's high noise digital age.
When it comes to virality, the number one aspect which I've learned, I've read a book. It's a very good book called Contagious, written by Jonah Berger. It's a wonderful book on virality. So what I've learned or even experienced in designing communication and product is the main virality comes when we think of the product itself. How can I engineer virality inside the product itself? For example, if I go to a restaurant, if I don't have enough marketing budget, I'm a restaurant owner. Once after the customer enters into my restaurant, what are the things that I can do to create, an extreme wow element inside the restaurant so that he goes out and he takes a photo of his experience inside the restaurant and shares it on Instagram without even me asking him to do. Most of the times when we enter into a restaurant or any shop, they insist to do certain things, right? Please write a review, we will incentivize it. Please talk about us on social media, we will incentivize it. But even one step moving forward, without even me asking you what I can do to enable that. It means getting into the core of the product and service. If there is some remarkable element in it, naturally it becomes a social currency. I think the author says that the idea is social currency. If you notice, if we go to a movie and the movie is remarkable, the number one thing which I do is I immediately want to share about something about this movie within my friends and social circle. Why do I do it is more important than the virality, because I want to look cool in front of my friends. If I read a great book, the next thing which I do is take a photograph of that book and share it in my social media. Why do I do that? Do I want to intentionally promote the book? No, it's because of me getting some social currency out of it. So what brands or marketers can do is getting into that, rather than thinking, am I serving the customer, my product or service? What am I doing from a product or service standpoint, which gives social currency, that remarkability element, that adds social currency to my customers, so that you become a natural viral phenomenon.
Absolutely. So it all boils down to, like we spoke earlier, experience.
Yeah.
Because today we are all experience seekers, right? Because every restaurant is serving good food. That's become the hygiene. Now that's why you have selfie points in restaurants, right? That's why you have experiential food servings. Yeah, the smoke coming out, the food being lit on the table, and all of that. I mean, while we're speaking about food, so it's all about the difference, the experience, that talking point that I can create in the value or the product that I'm offering you. So yeah, I think that's the secret sauce right now to build virality.
Yeah.
So we move on to the next very loaded question. Do you think brands these days are trying to force fit concepts like inclusivity, diversity, and many more basically to sound woke? It has had a huge backlash case in Point Titan, Kalyan Jewelers, and many more. How, as seasoned marketeers, do you both think that this code could be dealt with gracefully and not disappointing the primary TG at least?
Yeah, would you like to answer this first?
Yeah. See, Neha, there's a very, very interesting and very long form answer to this question. But you know what I'd like to maybe briefly touch upon. I mean, you've used words like inclusivity, diversity, and many more basic sounding woke to sound woke. See, it's not about sounding woke. Today, brands are obviously there are mistakes that brands make, and we are all trying our hand at this new age of being inclusive and diverse. But I think brands are genuinely trying to be inclusive and gender neutral and accommodating in nature. So yes, some brands try and force fit it, and that's when there is egg on the face. But a lot of brands are genuinely trying to do that, because today that's the need of the hour. Brands are not trying to differentiate. Brands are trying to be very open. Brands are genuinely trying to get these things into the DNA of their offerings also to consumers. There have been a lot of cases around the Pride Month. I don't want to take the names of the brands, but a lot of US brands have done very drastic comms or communication to be inclusive. That is being forceful, that's being very deliberate, that's being trying to put things in your DNA which might not go very well with consumers. But I think we should respect brands that are trying to be inclusive, because all of them are not about just show. I think today brands are genuinely trying to do that. Agencies, I mean, even work organizations, this is not something that the HR or the people's person in the organization is doing as a tick mark. They're genuinely believing in these things and genuinely trying to imbibe them. So I think the world is changing. There are mistakes being made on the way. Brands are also trying to do this. And like I said, mistakes are happening there also. But it's not just all woke. I think there's a lot of effort going in to imbibe these into our value systems and the brand's DNA. Yeah, Rajesh, what's your point on this one?
Yeah, I agree with your point. And it's not all woke. And it's good that brands have started orienting themselves to sustainability, green, and all the other softer side of business, rather than purely focusing on numbers. Even customers demand that. So that's one of the reasons why even all those talks about purpose, brand purpose, are mainstream these days. But the best practice would be for brands not to use social causes purely for the purpose of getting attention. Rather than that, how I can integrate the social causes in my own business practice. So I think few brands which have failed in this area are the ones who approach this purely for the sake of getting some short-term attention from the market. So I think I mean, there are two aspects to it. One is the intent. If I'm the intent of a company, and then putting things into action, and then going and communicating it, and how relevant it is to my business is what is critical. For example, there are a lot of good cases like Body Shop, which has integrated the social cause in the business practices. They just don't talk about I mean, usage of chemicals or testing, the animal testing and all those. They have integrated that in their business model itself. Lifebuoy is another good example. They have done some real social work. Unilever has done a lot of as trying to become more sustainable after realizing their impact on carbon footprint. I think some brands are taking real action towards it. And I mean, action is very important. Intent, action, and then finally communication. So rather than just communicating something just for the sake of getting attention from customers, I think the person who has asked this question is a bit disturbed on purely on brands communicating certain things without really standing for the values, without having a right intent and action taken.
Right. So yeah, Rajesh, I think we've from a half an hour slot, we've done a 1 hour slot. And still there's lots to talk, but it's been a fabulous session, Rajesh. Really enjoyed chatting with you. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it's totally my pleasure. I had a great time interacting with you. I mean, your insights were really thoughtful. I think we should connect and stay in touch.
We'll do that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you all.
Yeah, and I also thank Thinkly for organizing this interaction with you. And I thank all those wonderful questions the audience has asked. They're really awesome.
Yes.
Some insightful questions. I thoroughly enjoyed answering them. Thank you so much to you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Bye. Good night.